Hey, Mickey.
Hey, Bob.
How you doing?
I'm doing okay.
Good, good.
A lot of things happening. I spilled a cup of milk. I've cleaned it up.
Wait, before we started recording, you said you spilled coffee.
Coffee. It was coffee with milk.
This is the kind of thing that completely destroys a journalist's credibility, Mickey.
That was a Joe Biden level gaffe.
We'll get to that. Okay, so here's your news quiz. Do you want to start with foreign policy or domestic policy? Let's start with foreign policy.
So, I was afraid you'd say that. Okay.
First of all,
a lot of domestic policy. Okay.
We'll get to domestic. What is the significance of the current significance of the Ukrainian town of Kupiansk?
Bah.
Is that too obscure?
That's too obscure.
How about Kyiv? Have you heard of that?
Yeah. Okay. Somewhere in between those two.
Okay, but I'll tell you, and then we'll get to another one that you may have trouble answering. So, Kupiansk, just keep your eye on it. The Ukrainians have evacuated like 50 settlements, mainly very small villages in that vicinity. This is in the north, where the Russians have made a push. They've gained real ground, but Kupiansk would be this huge prize. It was one of the big prizes when the Ukrainians took over Kharkiv, most of Kharkiv in their big surprise September push of last year. And now it is imperiled, but we'll see. I mean, if the Russians take that, I think you will hear some serious doubts about the wisdom of this counteroffensive, because it was in the course of redeploying resources to the south that this defensive line became more exposed. Okay, so keep an eye on Kupiansk.
In general, the counteroffensive is not doing very well. Let's say it's people are beginning to pronounce it a failure.
It's what's new is the pronunciation of it's becoming a mainstream media thing. Ukrainians are still making, they've done these forays across the Dnipro River. I don't know if they add up to much, but they're keeping the Russians off balance. They're gaining small amounts of land incrementally at, I think, pretty significant cost. But yeah, that it is more and more, I think, a matter of consensus that this hasn't gone well.
But they had a successful conference in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, I mean, they had what they called peace talks. Unfortunately, the opposing side was not there, Russia, because, I don't know if they were invited, but they weren't there. China was there. That's something. But it sounds like basically Zelensky repeated his insistence that Russia vacate everything before there can be peace or something, which, of course, is a total non-starter. So I don't know. I don't know what exactly happened here.
It was just impressive that the Ukrainian PR machine managed to broadcast this great triumph. We've convinced the third world that they have more to gain from Ukraine than from Russia. That seems inherently implausible. But
I think opinions differ in the third world. I mean, look, you got your kind of American client states, and you got your states that are Wagner dependent, and you got a lot of probably difference of opinion. I don't know who exactly was there, but I don't see it having moved the ball toward peace.
Well, if you said they have more to gain from America than from Russia, that would make more sense. But
yeah, but I mean, it's the American clients that'll say they recognize the importance of Ukraine. Anyway, so quickly, one more. I want to get back to Ukraine if we have time, but one more thing. What do apparently all regional chiefs of military recruiting in Ukraine have in common?
One more time. All regional chiefs of
These
military.
These are the regional chiefs of Ukrainian military recruiting. What do they all have in common?
They all have villas on exotic foreign islands and sports cars.
They may now, but the other, and that's not unrelated to what they definitely have in common. They all just got fired. I think every one of them. Apparently, there's a big scandal. I gather the deal is rich people are paying them to avoid military service and in some cases be escorted across the border by them, while low-income people are conscripted and sent to the front. I mean, it must be a pretty big scandal if he's firing like all of them, which I gather is the case. Details are
that
still
does wonders.
scarce.
That does wonders for morale.
Well, I mean, it'll be interesting. I mean, because you have this conjunction with, you have more and more in the way of kind of reported despair on the part of Ukrainian people. I think I talked about this a week or two ago, but now there was a piece in the Washington Post about that this week, and the offensive's not working out. And we'll see if there are recriminations directed against the government. It's interesting. We'll see.
No, I think Zelensky gets points for taking action.
He gets points. He gets points.
He made a bunch of noises about how horrible it was.
Yeah. The question is, whether people will say, "Look, he should have had a clue a long time ago." How long has this been going on? We'll see. Now
that's Ron DeSantis style action.
To say
bullshit,
what?
You're fired.
Yeah.
To fire people.
Yeah, he fired another. Wait, you're trying to short circuit my quiz because you don't anticipate doing well, do you?
Is this still a quiz? This quiz is still ongoing?
Look,
it's a never-ending quiz. I'm trapped in a quiz.
Your score can only go up if we continue, because right now it's 0.
True, good point.
But it's true that DeSantis fired his campaign chief. He does fire someone every week, doesn't he?
He fired his he moved his campaign chief aside. He fired a prosecutor. He has no compunctions about firing people.
Okay, now the next one, Mickey, I think you may be able to get this. What do these two things have in common? Migrants coming to the U.S. to flee adverse climate conditions, I guess as a result of global warming, A, and B, the problem of lead in the water supply in some parts of America. What do those two things have in common?
They have Joe Biden's incipient cognitive decline in common. Biden was asked a question about, what is the answer to all these people coming across the border, and Biden started off with an answer. Then he started talking about the root causes of why they're leaving, which was not climate change. It was like lack of infrastructure and street lighting. And then he just completely went off into a different track of talking about how he's going to replace every lead pipe in America. And it was just very weird to watch. I mean, it was more abrupt and seemingly clueless. He didn't even know he was digressing. He was just sort of meandering on autopilot. It makes for a good podcast. That's what we do every week.
I'm about to play.
Doesn't work for the president.
I'm about to play that clip. But first, I want to say the answer I was looking for to what is the connection. The answer I was looking for was only one man knows. Joe Biden. No one else can figure it out.
So I didn't get points for that either. Jesus.
So I'm going to play this and see if we're being too hard on him. And I hope people will be able to hear. Yeah. So the interviewer asked, what responsibility does America have for migrants who are fleeing climate conditions and come to America? So let me see if I can make this happen. Okay. We're getting close. Twitter's having trouble loading.
To protect migrants.
Oh, come on.
They might be fleeing extreme weather in their countries.
Look, I think the United States should do everything it can to help people who are in desperate need and have no other means of help. And we've always done that. It is not it is just who we are. We're the United States of America. And the idea to begrudge the ability to, for example, one of the things we're doing is we're providing for changing the environment, the physical structures in the countries which they come from. So they have better lighting, they have more secure, for example, you have so many lead pipes all across America and throughout the country. You have 440,000 schools, you turn on the water fountain and they have lead in the water. And there's thousands of people. We're replacing every single lead pipe in America.
Okay, so I don't know. I'll let people judge. Maybe we can discuss this more in the Parrot room. But my question is, so this was circulated by this very anti-Biden RNC research, but where did the interview appear? Do you know who did it?
I forget. I think it was some Latino TV station. I don't know.
So it's a legit source, right? Because I noticed at the moment of maximum incoherence, when he moves to American water pipes, the camera shots are being cut back and forth. There are two cameras, and it does cut to another camera. So if this is like a dubious video.
Really? Right when he says the lead? I don't think so. I think
no,
it's a steady shot.
Trust me, he does. It does. I watched it. There's two cameras. Look, this happens a lot. It had happened before, but it would have to be truly malicious. And I don't think the source is a malicious one. But anyway, you'd think that would be a scandal by now.
It would be a scandal by now. Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, I guess if you want to give them the benefit of the doubt, it's like politicians commonly, if they don't have a good answer, they pivot. And maybe he just kind of like, any pivot of up to 90 degrees is acceptable, and he overshot and did 120. You can say that in his defense. But
maybe he was going to circle back and say, so if they have problems like we have with lead pipes, they're coming here. Of course, the logical conclusion is that we should be fleeing there because we have all these lead pipes. So we have to get away from them.
Or maybe, I know, he was probably going to say the way we manufacture the pipes, there are carbon emissions, and that's why.
No.
You don't think so?
No.
Okay.
The sinister undercurrent of all this, and I can't believe I missed the cutaway, if there is a cutaway.
It doesn't look suspicious the way some do. It's not a jump cut. What looks suspicious is when there's one camera and you see a jump cut. This is an interview where you're going back and forth anyway. It's a professionally produced interview, two cameras. But, yeah.
I fall for those things every now and then, but I don't like to do it too often. The sinister undercurrent is, he opens up all these special pathways for for tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of people to come in. So at first it was from the dictatorships from the dictatorship of Venezuela, from Venezuela and from Cuba and from Haiti.
Mickey, I'm going to let you continue, but first I just want to say one might argue that the pivot you're doing now is more than 90 degrees. But go ahead.
No, it's not. I'm getting there. So okay, and now he expanded that, to other more numbers and other circumstances, and now he wants to have a special one for all climate change refugees. That's what she was asking him about, which could be virtually anybody in Latin America. So he's basically he's expanded this bogus, allegedly legal loophole of parole. So he's basically letting in all of Latin America under the guise of they're all climate change refugees.
Well, then why doesn't he
that's what she was talking about.
Why doesn't he have a pat answer then? I mean, if that's, I guess the answer
that's a very good question.
Yeah.
It's weird. I saw a piece today where somebody said, and it was not a credible source, it was a British paper, said foreign governments have the feeling when they're talking to Biden, they're not talking to the man who is in charge. So this certainly reinforced that impression.
Did they say who the man in charge is?
On immigration policy, he does not seem like the man in charge. In other areas, he does. But
so
no,
final.
I don't know. I think we don't know.
Anyway, you do get credit for that answer. So 1 for 3. Final question. Who said the following? I think I'm well positioned to be president of the United States. I do not believe I'm well positioned to run for it right now.
Youngkin.
No. Dean Phillips. He's our great hope. He's apparently, unbeknownst to almost everyone in America, a member of the House of Representatives. He's a Democrat, and people are so hungry for an alternative to Biden that he just started talking about how it might be nice if somebody else ran, not necessarily him, and he gets a piece in Politico. I think he was he on Face the Nation and Meet the Press? I think maybe he was. I mean, anyway, there's a hunger, Mickey, for a Biden alternative.
Well, let the record show that I'm not the person who switched to domestic politics. That is one of the significances of this looming Biden scandal. I agree. There's also a Trump scandal, and we'll get to that. But is that it might, even if they don't prove any illegality, and if they don't impeach him, if the stink from Hunter's funnel all the money that went to the Biden family, which the Biden now says didn't go to Joe, it just went to everybody else in his family. If the stench got so bad, it might attract somebody else to run against him who is credible, and that might be the end of it.
Well, I will
so
say
that's they don't have to convict him to put him out of commission.
no. I will.
They don't
I
have to
will,
impeach him to put him out of commission either.
as I've said before, there are two things that could be albatrosses around Biden's neck by election time. One is that, and the other is the Ukraine war. It's not looking like you know.
I don't think either one. I think this one is on a fast track. I mean, keep in mind what's happened is at first they said he wasn't in business with them. Now they're reduced to like the last ditch offensive. $20 million went from foreign oligarchs to various members of the Biden family through Hunter, but Joe didn't get, none of it went directly to Joe. Okay. Now maybe some of it went indirectly to Joe. So that's like the last line of defense. If they can prove that if any money went to Joe, game is over.
Wait, is the number $20 million?
They have like bank records of $20 million over a course of several years going
To this entity.
to various members of the, sorry?
Well, first of all, there's a mediating entity, right? And then from it, money was
The
distributed.
mediating entity is Hunter, and then it's distributed to various setup funds and eventually goes to various other setup funds. It's all very, clouded and obfuscated on purpose.
Well, that's why I asked how clear it is that it came from
the fact
oligarchs.
that a former Biden, it wasn't an actual Biden PR person, but it was a former Biden PR person latched onto this thing. No money went directly to Biden after Politico did. And that's just such a pathetic defense. First, it leaves open that money went indirectly to Biden. First, it's an interesting figure. Biden seems to have discovered a new form of corruption. It's sort of pioneering. Maybe it's not that new, but Hunter gets a lot of money for the Biden brand. But Biden doesn't have to provide any quid pro quo for it at all. Mm-hmm. It's just like you in Ukraine, you got the vague sense that Americans are on our side, and this is the contribution of Holman Jenkins of the Wall Street Journal. Burisma hired Biden, so if you went after Burisma, you were going after Biden, which in the Ukrainian mindset jeopardizes the bipartisan support for Ukraine in Congress. So Hunter Biden was a hostage, okay? He was there because he's like a tripwire. If you go after Burisma, everything's going to go haywire, so don't go after Burisma. Okay, you didn't have to do anything. You just had to sit there and be a hostage. Okay, so he gets all this money from situations like that, and Biden doesn't have to provide a quid pro quo, and then he distributes it to other members of the family, but not to Biden. So maybe Biden would provide college expenses for his grandkid. He doesn't have to do it because Hunter doesn't. It goes to his benefit. But Biden is living in the world of that famous Eddie Murphy skit for Saturday Night Live, where he goes to buy a newspaper and they say, "Oh, you don't have to pay for the newspaper." There are no blacks around.
The premise is he's acting white,
and
he's learning what it's like to be white in the white world. And go ahead.
So Biden doesn't have to do a lot of things like the big man paterfamilias usually does. That's taken care of by this $20 million. So he could say, I got no money directly. It's sort of a brilliant scheme when you think of it. And the question is, does it stink? And it stinks.
Look, I would say if they can really show that $20 million went from Ukrainian oligarchs.
No, from a variety of oligarchs. Kazakhstan, China, about 50%. 50% was from Ukraine. 50% was from Ukraine.
Well, still, if it's 10 million from Ukraine, anyway, if they can really show, I thought the point of setting up this network of organizations was that you'd never be able to show anything because the money's coming from all over and it's going to all kinds of people. But if they can really show something like what you're saying, then even if they can't show the money going to Biden himself, that should be kind of a little bit of a scandal, right? I mean, that's pretty shady.
I think so. I think my line is it's impeachable, but it doesn't mean I wouldn't vote for him under certain circumstances. But
I'm not sure it's I would almost say the opposite. It's I'm not sure it's impeachable, but
Well, the key with impeachment, it doesn't have to be a crime.
well, neither is not voting. The reason to not vote for someone. So anyway, okay, so
And
maybe
that's heating up incredibly quickly, and you have like there should be some word for like the Peggy Noonan just sort of has now pronounced it's a real scandal. Okay, you need like 2 or 3 more figures. I was arguing with somebody who was trying to figure out why did people take Watergate so seriously. I mean, it obsessed the nation for months. It eventually led to Nixon's impeachment. It was not as corrupt as this, okay, as this potentially is. And nobody cares about this, but they cared intensely about Nixon. And why was it? I think it's because the press had more credibility. People who they trusted to be neutral said this is a real scandal. Nixon lied, but Biden's lied. I don't understand it. So if 2 or 3 more, 4 or 5 more people like Peggy Noonan say, like Bob Woodward comes out and says, sorry, this is really bad. This is a real scandal. Yeah, but 2 or 3 other people, I think maybe it will be a scandal.
Yeah, but I think the jump from there's a big wall between Peggy Noonan and Bob Woodward. Peggy Noonan is a Wall Street Journal columnist. There's a whole bunch of Wall Street Journal columnists who spend all their time complaining about shit like this. That's not where it needs to come
Except
from.
Peggy Noonan loves Biden and hates Trump.
Yeah, but still,
so it's a statement against interest.
She is not someone who moves the conversation into the mainstream. Bob Woodward is closer to that. But let me ask you, is this getting any coverage in like Washington Post, New York Times, news space, reporting space? Wall Street Journal?
That's a good question.
CNN?
It's hard for me being a denizen of the web to distinguish those from the general barrage of information. So I don't know. My impression is getting a little bit, but it's sort of below the fold.
Man, I don't see it.
It's not getting trumpeted. It's certainly getting 1/10 the coverage of the Jack Smith prosecution of Trump.
I mean, every time I learn something about it, it seems shadier, but I have not seen, I don't know of anything I've seen in true mainstream media. So that's why people come to this
Woodward might well flip. Woodward has been quoted as saying, the Washington Post has gone a little too far to the left, et cetera, et cetera. He could easily pronounce on that. I don't think he would do the job. That would do the job. But
you need to convince the New York Times and like the Washington Post to really do this in the news space?
A movement on the left that challenges Biden and says he's corrupt. We got to get rid of him.
You need to convince them that it is not inevitable that he'll be the Democratic nominee, that there is time to replace him with a stronger candidate. Because that's the only reason I think that they're hesitant to focus on this. It's obviously a story. Even if there's nothing to it, it's obviously a story.
That gets. I agree with that. That gets to this. My craziest theory of the week.
Whoa, that's saying something. What is
our governor Gavin Newsom has foolishly promised to, if Feinstein steps down, to replace her with a black woman. You know who's a black woman, Bob?
I could name a few.
Kamala Harris.
Genius move.
There's your solution.
Genius move. I'm all for that.
There's your solution. Now, Harris would have to somehow have the Riot Act read to her. She'd have to enter a couple of primaries and lose.
Yeah.
And to avoid humiliation, she would get this sinecure in the Senate. It's a lifetime appointment. You never lose a Democratic black woman is not going to lose a California
What primary
Senate
would she lose? How would she lose a primary? She's not the presidential candidate.
It would somehow.
You mean it would start looking
it'd be
like...
wrapped. It'd be wrapped up that if Biden says I'm not running, and all of a sudden we're in a primary situation. No, I'm trying to. There are a bunch of other. I mean, obviously she'd rather be vice president than Senate, but being Senate is not nothing, especially since if she's senator for 8, she's young. If she's senator for 8 years, she would be much supposedly readier to be president. I don't believe it, but people might believe it. Anyway, if you're looking for a way out for Kamala, I'd rather have her in the Senate than on the Supreme Court. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, that would be my order of preference. Senate, then, well, anyway.
Maybe
it is a crazy theory. We needn't dwell on it.
She could frame it as an act of defiance. fuck you, Biden. I'm sick of this warm bucket of spit job. I'm going to go to the Senate and really get something accomplished.
For our younger viewers, there's a politician in ancient American history who once compared being vice president to a warm bucket of spit. Who was that, Mickey?
Actually, I think it was a warm bucket of piss, but it got
No.
for the meeting.
No.
Yes.
Mickey, that's not what America's about. It's about spit. Who do we know who said that? It doesn't matter.
I think it was somebody named Garner, I believe, and I believe he was the vice president. But I'm not sure. John Nance Gardner? I don't know.
I can read your notes, so I know you're slowly working your way around to Code Pink and the fact that they were apparently subsidized by somebody who got money from China. That's why do you think they called it Code Pink? That's transparency.
These are my backup topics, Bob, on the back of my sheet of paper. We'll get to Code Pink.
I mean, that's how Biden gets into trouble, is making his notes visible, at press conferences. Don't do that.
The one other wrinkle on the Hunter Biden scandal, in addition to the fact that he was a hostage, he didn't have to actually get Joe to do anything for him, was the period after this. John Ellis pointed this out in a Substack post, and he doesn't know the answer, but there's a period in 2017 and 2018 when when Joe Biden's out of office, he's a private citizen, as you often point out, Hunter Biden's income stays the same. It's still $2 million a year. He makes like a couple $1 million during this period, and nobody could expect Joe to provide a quid pro quo then, because
the oligarchs are investing in the future.
Well, and also he's not a brand anymore because he's out of office, and that is the only possible explanation, that the oligarchs. But he didn't have a future. He was out of politics. He was an ancient guy who was never going to run again. Nobody thought he would run again, let alone win. And maybe the oligarchs didn't understand how out of it he was. And maybe the oligarchs think, well, in my country, you stay once an oligarch, always an oligarch. Families have, lasting staying power. In America, they didn't understand that in America, when you're out of office, you're a nobody pretty quickly.
But that's not your theory. Your actual theory is that it was ongoing, agreed upon payments.
No, my actual theory is that it's no. The answer is it's a mystery. We don't have a theory. And the only theory I can come up with, your theory, is the obvious one, that they're looking to the future, but it doesn't quite make sense. My theory is it fits with the hostage theory, in that Biden is still. They may have thought that, well, we're paying Hunter to still be our hostage because Ukrainians still think that if we go after Hunter Biden, Burisma, we're going after Hunter, and we're going to jeopardize Democratic support, because Biden will be pissed off. Even if he's out of office, he'll be pissed off, and the Democrats will turn against us. Remember when Colonel Vindman, in the impeachment hearing of Trump, he originally was horribly upset by Trump's phone call trying to bully Zelensky into investigating Burisma and Hunter.
The perfect call. Not
because he thought that there was a bogus investigation and that Hunter and Burisma weren't guilty, but because it would piss off the Democrats and jeopardize bipartisan support for Ukraine. Right. So this is the same deal. This is of a piece with that. So they may have thought that somehow Biden's revenge power outlasted his office, even though he was out of office. The only thing I can think of.
So, go ahead.
We could broaden this. You could broaden the scandal to Obama.
How could we do that?
I don't know, but there's been a lot of talk about Obama because of this David Samuels interview with David Garrow in
who's David Garrow
magazine. The biographer of Martin Luther King, who wrote a very, very nasty biography of Obama that didn't get any traction, including his letters to his girlfriend where he mused about having sex with men.
Yeah.
How could that not have any gossip value? Good grief. Why did I only hear about that yesterday? And he makes the interesting point that, which I hadn't realized, I had thought Obama, after he left office, had gone Hollywood. He'd spend all his time scouting homes in Palm Springs and, selling selling TV shows to Microsoft and Apple, and living the life of Hollywood and raking it in. No, he stayed in Washington. He had a house in Washington, and we never hear stories about what he did in Washington. Okay, and Garrow's theory is he was running the fucking government from his townhouse, from his house in Kalorama. He was doing something.
Wait a second. Wait, what years is this?
This is the Biden presidency, the last 4 years, 3 years.
I fear I wish Obama were that engaged. Maybe he'd ease Joe out of contention for the presidency and give us a replacement.
Anyway, so the crazy extension would be that somehow pissing off Joe would also piss off Obama, and Obama really was still a power to be reckoned with. So Ukraine couldn't afford to piss off Obama. So they give money to Hunter. I don't.
That seems pretty strained.
Yeah.
Now,
okay. So go ahead.
So the interview was by David Samuels.
Of Garrow.
I think
really
I have grave doubts about Samuels, but that's another story since he's.
I have grave doubts about both of them.
Yeah.
It was because of that. It was a very interesting issue. Two untrustworthy narrators interviewing each other.
I think Samuels is the one who did a piece for the New York Times Magazine years ago, trying to cast the whole movement to get the Iran deal through during the Obama administration as some kind of big scandal, and it became really clear that he didn't understand the first thing about a lot of things, how social media works and stuff. It was really kind of a hit piece.
They definitely have it in for Obama spending political capital on the Iran deal.
Speaking of Iran,
one of their biggest beefs.
Speaking of Iran, do you know? Here's another quiz question. So apparently we are. I don't know if this has been called off. I'd like to think so, but we were at last check. We were deploying American troops who might man commercial tankers in the Persian Gulf, because Iran had been harassing and/or seizing tankers, and I guess we wanted to let them know this would mean war or something. But the quiz question is, do you know why Iran started doing that to tankers?
No.
Because we seized an Iranian ship. I mean, I don't know if it was flagged Iranian or had Iranian oil. Anyway, we did it to them, basically, off the coast of the United States. We still have the ship. We won't give it back. And this is something you will not find reported in mainstream media, what the actual problem. In fact, they systematically misreport. I think I just read in the Washington Post, it said, Iran has been harassing tankers in an attempt to coerce the U.S. to return to the nuclear talks. I mean, Iran has totally given up on the nuclear talks. It's clear that Biden didn't want a deal. It would have been the easiest thing in the world to get a deal. Just say to them at the beginning, let's return to the status quo ante. Before Trump pulled us out of the deal, the sanctions he put on you are off. You're back to full compliance with the deal. Could have done it in a day, but he didn't want to. And they finally got fed up and said, screw you. And the Washington Post, I hope I've got that right. I'll apologize next week if I don't, is reporting, it's common for reporters to say this, the reason Iran is doing this is X. No, the reason Iran is doing this is we seized their ship as a way of enforcing these sanctions that we have no right imposing on Iran in the first place. That, again, would not be there themselves, those sanctions. The premise for our seizing that ship would not exist if Joe Biden had just done the obvious thing that any right-minded progressive should have done, which is return to the deal that Obama struck with Iran. Okay, I'm done.
I thought there was a problem with going back to that because they're already too far down the road of centrifuging. So you can't turn back.
Well, that wasn't the case 3 years ago, whenever Biden took office, and I don't know that it's the case now. But look, what we did was we said, okay, we want a bunch of other stuff now. We want restrictions on your ballistic missiles that don't have nuclear warheads, don't necessarily have anything to do. We want this, we want that, we want this. We made all these new demands. And
why do you think he did that?
I don't know.
Why do you think?
Why is Biden in so many ways turning out to be so hawkish and so neoconish? I don't know.
It can't be because he's a friend of Bibi's. He's hasn't been a friend of Bibi's the last couple of months.
Well, what I would direct people to a really good conversation that I just had with Joshua Landis, a scholar of the Middle East at the University of Oklahoma. Posted it on Tuesday. We get into a lot of Middle East stuff. He knows a lot more about it than I do. He's the one who explained to me that this all started with us seizing their ship. So that's on the Nonzero podcast feed.
By the way, Bibi has backed off his judicial reforms. You saw that?
Did he?
Yeah.
So the victory he won is no longer a victory?
Maybe I read an outdated news account, but it seems to me he's settling for some change in the composition of the Judicial Selection Commission. He's not going for maybe I read a parody. Who knows?
Could have been The Onion.
Take that back.
I've been kind of out of it.
Check it out for yourselves, people.
I've been furiously trying to get out the Nonzero newsletter. By the way, people should check out the latest Nonzero newsletter, if only to see the art created by Clark McGillis, our graphic artist in residence. It's this, the piece is about AI's Oppenheimer moment. You know, the director of Oppenheimer, Christopher Nolan, said in an FT interview, well, actually, the interviewer got him to compare AI, the challenge of AI to the challenge of nuclear weapons. And so then people started talking about Sam Altman as Oppenheimer and so on. I wrote a piece about that. The piece isn't that great, but Clark did a thing based on the movie poster of Oppenheimer that you should really go check out. And that's my last word on that. If you feel you want to read the piece, I'm not going to stop you. But the main thing is to look at the movie poster.
Didn't he also write our headlines last week?
No, he's writing them this week.
Oh, okay.
You know, when you have a staff of thousands, it's confusing.
Somebody did a really good job has been doing a very good job on the headlines recently.
Whoever
whoever did it, it's gotten quite good.
We have only the finest workers on the Nonzero team.
The other point to be made about Obama is the general assessment of his legacy.
I mean, I'll say it goes into. Let me, as long as I'm plugging great workers, that would have been Andrew Day last week, I think.
Okay. The general assessment of Obama's legacy has certainly soured a bit. It was very high when people were saying, God, I wish for the days of Obama instead of Trump. They were so calm. I do think Obamacare was a big step forward. I think he gets credit for that, defective as it was. Even if it didn't improve the health of Americans, it lowered the anxiety level of Americans. So more people think they can get insurance. It's completely screwed over independent freelance workers, but who cares about them? And they're fixing that supposedly. There are alarming signs. I had my first doctor who completely left Medicare, and he's on his own. I have to pay him $350 a visit. That's for starters, and none of it is covered by insurance, not even by my Medigap. So it's strictly out of my pocket. Okay, if 4 more doctors do that, Medicare is worthless to me, right? So, or I have to go find 4 new doctors. So it's on the, judging from my own experiences, Medicare is on the verge of coming apart. But even if it doesn't come apart, Obamacare is good. But if you look at the country, it is way more divided by race, especially than it was when Obama took office. And Obama bears some guilt for that. He is the guy who made a big deal of Trayvon Martin, which helped, and of the Wilson business in near St. Louis. That was a conscious decision, and it divided America, and it was really bad for America, especially bad for blacks. I mean, it totally set back whatever sort of progress I think blacks were making in joining the mainstream labor force without people paying attention.
Wait, the Trayvon Martin thing set back
the whole
labor force?
There were a series of causes culminating in the George Floyd business, which was not under Obama, that I think that helped light the fires of black activism in a way that made white employers not want to hire people. Yes, I think that was a harm.
Wait, it made the Trayvon Martin case, the uproar over it made white employers not want to hire black people?
Well, it was part of the whole activation of Black Lives Matter. I think it preceded Black Lives Matter, I believe.
And why did they not want to hire black people now? Because
now we've been through this. Now, if you used to hire a black person, the worst that happens, you would get sued. Okay. So you have to weigh the risk of getting sued against the merits of the person you're hiring. But now you could be more than sued. You could be canceled for life as a racist by the newly woke Black Lives Matter movement.
If you do what? If you fail to hire a black person?
If you hire somebody at KCRW, if you hire a black producer, not only will you get sued, but you say, oh, so and so said racist things in the newsroom. So it dramatically increases the penalties of if you have a disaffected worker suing you.
You're saying people are afraid that if they hire black workers, the black workers will sue them?
Not only will sue them, they will cancel their careers. They will end their careers. You will be a professor. You won't be sued. You will be kicked out of the university. You're a movie producer. You're not going to be sued. You will never direct a movie again because you will have a reputation as a racist.
Wait, you're saying the fear is that if you let a black person into your workplace, they will sue you and denounce you?
I'm saying there's always a danger that people worried about if we create these rights of litigation among aggrieved groups. People will be reluctant to hire the aggrieved groups because there's a greater risk of litigation. That's always.
And you're saying if Trayvon, if we had never heard of the Trayvon Martin case, this wouldn't be the case?
I'm saying that Obama acquiesced in making a big deal, consciously making a big deal of a few instances of Trayvon Martin and the Brown thing near St. Louis were both they were both very, very gray. The Brown thing wasn't gray at all. He was a thug, apparently. But
which guy? You mean hands up, don't shoot?
Yeah.
Well, whether he was a thug wasn't the question. What came into doubt was, cops shouldn't shoot thugs. What came into doubt was whether the cop had in fact shot him. Whether he's a thug or not didn't matter. Now it turned out that there wasn't good evidence that the hands up, don't shoot thing did not hold up in court. Black witnesses, white witnesses agreed that it was not nearly that simple. The guy had apparently approached the cop car and so on. So I take that point, but it doesn't have anything to do with whether he's a thug, Mickey.
Yes, the reason they were looking for him is because he strong-armed a box of cigars from a convenience store. Because he was a thug.
Actually, they owed him that. They owed him the cigars because it turned out the actual true story was that he was a petty drug dealer and he had sold marijuana to one of the clerks there, and the clerk was paying him. The clerk was corrupt. I'm just going to point that out. The clerk was paying him with the goods from the store. The clerk owed him the cigars. He came in. That clerk wasn't on duty. He took the cigars anyway. But anyway, we don't have to get into it.
I didn't know that at all. That's an interesting backstory. I didn't know that.
But look, how police apprehend people has nothing to do with whether their prior history shows they're a thug. Now, I agree with you that the story turned out to be wrong.
I'm talking about why he was being. The police were out looking for him because he had engaged in a specific act of thuggery.
Look, if he had, and the hands up, don't shoot scenario were true, then the cops still would have been wrong. As it happens, the hands up, don't shoot scenario apparently wasn't true, so the cop wasn't clearly in the wrong, but that too has nothing to do with whether the guy had a prior history of thuggery. Can't believe we're arguing this, right?
I didn't say the prior history. I said there was an instance of thuggery involved in that instance.
Police, they should treat people as suspects. That's what they are at that point. But anyway,
they were treating him as suspect. Then he lunged for the officer's gun.
Trayvon Martin was a little different in the sense that the original story was wrong, in the sense that the guy hadn't, held him down and wantonly murdered him. On the other hand, that guy should not have been following with a gun. The cops told that guy not to follow him with a gun. And he was a bad actor.
Right, Ben, that's why I said
it's not shocking. And it's not shocking that when you follow a guy around at night and you clearly are following the guy around at night, he turns on you and starts to fight you. That's not shocking. So I'm not willing to concede that we should not lament what happened to Trayvon Martin.
I said it was okay. I said it was a gray area. I think it was a gray area. But the point is, the point is, they ginned up a whole. Instead of saying we should grieve for Trayvon Martin. This is a horrible thing. He shouldn't have been carrying a gun. On the other hand, he was, about to be killed. That he shouldn't put himself in that situation. It was part of a conscious national campaign that was very destructive to our nation and to Black progress, et cetera, et cetera. And Obama, instead of telling his people on the left to cool it, acquiesced and engaged in it. That is a part of his legacy, and it's not a good part.
Well, I'm not seeing the connection between Trayvon Martin and workplace environment. I will say, I don't think from a political point of view, Obama played these things well. But that's just a question of how the politics worked out for him, and how, and how the fact that you're a Black president affects the way everything's going to be seen, and it's good to be conscious of that. But
he was incredibly conscious of that. He just, he was reacting
in the wrong way.
No, he was always incredibly conscious of that, and then at some point he decided, well, I can't, be cautious about being the angry Black man 100%. I have to do a little bit of it. So, his whole life was based on not being the angry Black man. Yeah.
But he did connect the Trayvon Martin case to his own identity. He said that could have been my son. And look, it could have been. It's like, that guy was what's the name of the guy who killed him? That guy was a nut. And
he was the white Hispanic, remember?
I guess he had an Hispanic name, right?
Yes, I think he was half Hispanic.
Now, speaking of that, that was the alarm. So we need to talk about what we're going to talk about in the Parrot Room at patreon.com/Parrot Room.
God. Okay. Well, we have the whole prosecution of Trump then to talk about in the Parrot Room.
Oh, God.
What could be more fun?
What is there to say? But we'll say it. We'll say it, folks.
Oh, I think I badly phrased what the legal issues were, or I obviously didn't convince you last week. So I want to make another go of it. It seems to me there is one area of weakness for Trump that we can talk about.
Mm-hmm.
God, there's so many other things to talk. I haven't even ranked them in order. There's Robbie Robertson, who passed away.
Who's Robbie? From the band?
Yeah. There's some very weird thing with Tim Scott's campaign finances that
we can
go into. And I have a quirky view on that. There are other issues that happened that we may have nothing to say about. This big defeat for anti-abortion people in Ohio, this assassination in Ecuador, the coming Saudi-Israeli pact.
Oh, God. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that in the Parrot Room. Jesus. That is like the ultimate indictment. Well, there's so much competition for that. But Joe Biden's foreign policy is so bad.
Yeah. Code Pink.
I saw that. Yes.
It's this UFO guy. I watched a little bit of the testimony of that UFO
and then
guy.
Did you read this Grush guy? We'll talk about him. Did you read the Intercept piece about him?
So he was in a mental institution.
Yeah, I know.
Why make a big deal of it?
We'll talk about it. We'll talk about you.
Autonomous cars in San Francisco.
Sure.
You got the green light.
Let's do it.
Biden made some nasty comments about China that you'll not won't like. And Michael Lynn versus Richard Hanania. There's a whole Richard Hanania stuff.
Yeah, there was a whole thing that we'll get to.
Okay.
Now, a musician named Rodriguez died. I want to talk about that. I think. I'm going to talk a little bit about Oppenheimer, not the movie. I watched this actually very good NBC documentary from 1965 about the making the decision to drop the bomb. And I think I'm going to ask you a little bit about Sohrab Ahmari. You know him?
I vaguely know him. He's the guy who was editorial page editor of the New York Post, and then he started his own magazine.
Compact Magazine. He's got a book coming out.
Compact Magazine is where the Samuels, no, that's the tablet. Compact Magazine is where the Lynn versus Hanania.
Oh, is it?
Article is.
Well, see, yeah, Compact is this kind of, is it nationalist conservative? Is that the way you would put it?
I think so. I'm not sure. I can't even keep track of all their names, much less who they're associated with.
Yeah. Well, then maybe we won't be bringing him up because I'm gonna have him. Yeah.
We're replacing every lead pipe in America.
I see the connection. So what else? Other stuff. A lot of comments. I want to address a lot of commenters. I want to explain how Jimmy Johnson destroyed the whole ethos of the Dallas Cowboys, for example. A commenter asked about that. So this is patreon.com/parrotroom. And again, you should Google Nonzero and Substack, if only to gaze at this. Well, first, what you should do is actually go look at the Oppenheimer movie poster. Have that in mind. Then look at our art. That's what you should do.
And I'm sure you were falsely modest about your piece. Does this mean you're shifting your book to AI away from cognitive empathy? We're looking for tea leaves here.
All things are possible in this world.
I want to know if I should long Bob or short Bob.
Oh, you should short Bob himself, yes. Then,
you know that there are separate funds to long Jim Cramer and short Jim Cramer?
You mean whatever recommendations
There's one fund that invests in whatever he recommends, and there's another fund that shorts everything he recommends.
You know, Marty Parrott once offered to give me $10,000 of the Crimson Fund, which was run by Jim Cramer.
Yeah.
Not for gratis. He owed me the money because it was like a bonus for my being acting editor.
It was like that. It was like that box of cigars that Michael Brown had to get.
Kind of, yeah.
And he said,
almost exactly.
I'm not going to give you the box of cigars. I'm going to give you a share of Jim Cramer's fund. Anyway, the long Jim Cramer fund, the pro Jim Cramer fund, is beating the crap out of the anti Jim Cramer fund this year.
I should have taken the Crimson. I should have taken the Crimson Fund. It just seemed kind of weird and shady, and I wanted the cash.
But it wasn't the. I'll go long, Bob. Especially if you write about AI.
That's inspiring. Well, in that case, I'll do it. Okay.
Cool.
All will become clear in the Parrot Room. Patreon.com/Parrot Room. And whether or not you plan to go there, it wouldn't hurt to click the like button on YouTube, rate and review. And so on.
See you there.
Okay. See you.